Welcome, faithful listeners, to another Brew Ink Podcast. All right, and welcome back to another episode of Brew and Ink Podcast, episode 7. It's a good number.
It is a good number.
Yeah.
We're at 7 already?
Number of completion.
Yeah,
Yes.
number of completion.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we're quitting
No,
after
we're
this,
not
right?
done. No.
Okay, we're not. Okay.
Yeah.
We
We got
could kill
a few
them
more
all
things.
off.
I don't know. Wait, did you kill them all off?
Not yet.
No,
we
okay.
could.
No spoilers right there, but yeah. So welcome everybody back to listen. We just had a great release party for Mr. M.B. Mooney.
Woohoo!
His book came out, The Fire Reborn.
Yeah.
The Fire Starters, the Pyromaniacs.
That's right. That's right.
And it was good. He read a little scene from it, and I think when he said he was done, everyone was waiting for the rest of the chapter, and they wanted more. So I would say, look it up on Amazon. Go pick yourself up a copy. It's the third in the series, so maybe you want to pick up the first 2 books if you haven't already.
Yeah.
But it's the Eris Chronicles.
Yep.
What would be the best way for them to look
Just
that up?
Amazon. Just look MB Mooney or The Living Stone up on Amazon, and you'll find it.
Yeah.
We'll have links on the website.
And we'll have links
Yeah.
on the website, and we'll probably put it on
On the
Facebook page as
Yeah.
well.
So yeah, let's get started. For me, I have been trudging away through. I don't really know where I'm at in chapters anymore because what was like chapter 7 has now been split in half, and now new stuff is coming in. So that's like in chapter 8, chapter 9 of my rewrite, and that's going well. And as I'm rewriting that, I'm also going back once a week and polishing off those, first couple chapters. And so that's been going well for me. And then I dug up a few old things today or this week for your release party, and went back and polished off that children's book a little more. And
It was good.
yeah, it was. I'm glad I did because we had a lot of kids at the release party, and the section that I'd picked for my book to share was a little more graphic than I thought the kids. So I was like, look, I'll read my children. And then we had a lady come up and read a poem, so I thought it fit in much nicer, kind of with what she was doing. So that was good. And it's always fun to go back and look through your old stuff that's just kind of been sitting there, and you go back and I had like 3 or 4 different sections where I was still trying to figure out what words do I want to use in this part and that part. And when you go back and read it fresh from you're like, oh, obviously it's not that, it's this. This works much better, or this wording is just better, cleaner. And that's why it's really good. Like Bill, you were talking about it a few podcasts ago, like you just take a break from your work, forget about it, and then come back again. And
It's a completely different story when you come back and
Yeah.
read it. It's new.
yeah, and it's a part of the editing process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like it. And for me, review-wise, I've been watching a Netflix series called Lost in Space, and I know some of you older listeners out there might actually remember the original. And you got the Danger Will Robinson, and that's in there.
The
You will not-
original was black and white.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
really old.
And
Yeah.
when we say original, we don't mean the one with Joey.
No, not the
Oh,
movie.
God.
Not the movie.
I'm sorry.
And the really bad CGI monkey and whatever that thing was.
Apparently, I had blocked that out of my.
No, it's really horrible.
yeah.
When we mean original, we mean the 60s, early 60s
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
early
Uh,
60s.
TV show.
TV show, which is the
Absolutely.
best.
Yeah, and so now Netflix has redone it, and I was pleasantly surprised. I was expecting to just watch something that was kind of mind-numbing, and I'll watch the first few episodes and see how they did. And I put it on with my kids in the room, and they were like glued to it, and it's good. And what they definitely modernized the robot. Gave it a much newer, futuristic look to it, and all that. But it's I would say it's a different story, but it's the same. It's Lost in Space. It's the families, and they gave it a good enough original story that it's gonna be fresh for anyone to be able to dive into.
Good. And that was what was so disappointing to me about the movie is that it could have been so good.
Yeah.
Because the original, it really is a great setup. There's a family.
Yeah.
And there's scientists. I mean, there's
I
a
know,
great.
but
there's a-
Joey from Friends. I know.
He ruined
As
it.
the tough guy.
I'm
It
just
just
saying.
doesn't work.
I'm just saying.
And I've only watched like 4 episodes, so I'm only 5 episodes in. I haven't binged the whole thing yet. But as far as I've gotten, they're still kind of in one location still, but there's been a lot of going back. So they do a lot of this, this is where they are, and then they give you snippets of this is what we know from this character's point of view as to what happened. So they're still on kind of revealing that portion of it, but I'm assuming at some point they're going to be able to escape and probably end up somewhere else, which will set up, the next season and the next season. I imagine they're going to be able to, like you said, that the setup is great. You could really go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
And so I'm
and as long as you have strong characters, that's going to work.
Yeah. So on to you, Bill.
Yeah, a couple of things. I don't talk much about the media intake. I started watching something I really am enjoying this week. I give myself permission to watch one television series at a time.
Yes.
Because otherwise it sucks the writing life out of me, and I
they
need that
meld
time
together into one.
Yeah, I need that time to work. So. I started watching Jessica Jones this week. Now, definitely not kid friendly.
No.
Oh, that is
none of those Netflix Marvel.
Absolutely not kid friendly, but very good on the characters.
Yeah.
Very, very good excellent on the characterization and the depth of characters. I just really like, and also the filmography. I'm a film guy, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's on media intake, and I recommend that for anybody, but don't have your kids in the room because they do a lot of grunting and things.
Yeah.
And things associated with that. Anyway, so the other thing is this week, I got to this point in Armed to the Dentures where I was doing this polish, and I looked at this and said, I'm still at 148,000 words. And I finished a really detailed synopsis as I was going through this polish, and then realized, of course, that was a complete waste of time because the synopsis I'd done in a matter of a couple of hours previously was much better and much it told the story better.
Yeah.
And so it made more sense. It was something that was easy to follow and all that. But the real point of this was that in that process, I looked at that super detailed 5.5-page synopsis and said, there's something really wrong with this. And that is, I've got two characters in here. They're really a team, so they're almost one character. But I've got this character group in here that is unnecessary. They're fun. They're a lot of fun to read about. Their dialogue is great and all that. But in 3 or 4 points where they really came in and were involved in major points in the story, they were not essential. And not only were they not essential, they stole some of the lightning from the essential characters. And that was the problem, is when you got to the end and suddenly you had your 5 essential characters, this group of old women that robbed a bank together. And then you've got these 2 other young women involved in this group. The dialogue becomes between these 2 groups instead of inside of the primary group of characters. And that was detrimental to the story.
It wasn't the flow you wanted that you knew it needed.
As great as it was and as fun as it was, it stole from the characters, from the primary characters.
So what was your solution? What did you do?
I cut them out mercilessly. I went through and got rid of those 2 characters through the whole story, and it took me half a day to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me about 3 or 4 hours of writing to go through and just do a search for every time either one of them's name or the term girls came up. And there were a couple of places where they didn't show up with an easy search and I had to hunt it down. But it was easy to write them out because suddenly it gave the protagonist group, that group that is the protagonist, more dialogue between themselves and more conflict within themselves. It just made for a better story. So my encouragement to writers out there is look at your characters with some depth, and remember that when Hemingway said "kill your darlings," he meant kill your darlings.
Yeah,
they're so cute. They're so much fun. My wife grumped at me about taking these characters out of it, but they needed to go.
Yeah, you know something I've always wanted to do is, because I've done that when you cut scenes out or you cut characters out or whatever. I've always wanted to and it's easier to do now with self-publishing and stuff, but literally put out a deleted scenes
version
ebook.
Yeah.
Like just put out a deleted
That would
scene.
be fun.
Because I love those, like when you're watching a movie,
Right.
and they're like deleted scenes, and sometimes they do that in a movie. They'll cut out whole story arcs because it's got to cut 20 minutes out of the movie.
Right.
They got to cut 5.
And
10
the editor, he's the last storyteller in the line, and he looks at it and says, "I can take this out."
Yeah, we need to cut this out. Or the director's like, and you know they spent time. Somebody wrote the script.
They hired an actress.
They hired
or something.
actors,
Yeah.
and it's like, boop, they're gone. But then they put them in the deleted scenes. That's what's the cool thing about DVDs.
Yeah, but they don't have to pay the residuals to those actors.
No,
Cut
they
them
don't.
out of there.
I wonder if they do, if they put them in the deleted scenes on
I
the
don't
DVD. That's a good question.
But there's some movies I've seen where I've looked at deleted scenes and they're like parts of the story that are beautiful and awesome, but I see as a writer why they had to cut them out.
Yeah.
But some of them are really like,
Movies are tough
great.
that way because you've got the writers, and then
Yeah.
you got the second group of writers and the third group of writers, and then you got the directors and the producers who are cutting the checks, and they're going to rewrite everything.
yeah.
And then the last writer is the editor.
Yeah.
He really
Yeah.
is another writer in that group
Yeah,
because
he shapes the
he
story.
trims that story down to what it finally is.
Right.
Yeah. Which it also explains why it's so hard to make a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at each one of those levels, someone has to make the right decision.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why when you do see a great movie, you really have to appreciate the level of quality that had to happen at every level.
Yeah, original version of Blade Runner versus the
Director's cut.
Yeah.
Yes, on the director's
Yeah.
cut.
Yeah.
See.
So how many words were you able to cut out by taking them out?
I got it down under 140,000.
Where are you trying to get to?
I cut almost 9,000 words out by taking these two characters out.
Yeah.
What are you trying to get to?
I got to my goal. I wanted it to be
Okay.
under 140,000. I wanted it to be a
Awesome.
marketable size.
Yeah.
And 150,000 words was not marketable. It was too big for a first novel.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
I gotta keep that in mind.
Right?
I'm adding stuff into my what was an 80,000 word book, so I've got some room to play with. But I was trying to keep it under 100,000. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm trying to keep mine under.
Doing the opposite of what you're doing. I'm adding characters in.
hey, I had my days, where I'd look at the end of the day and I added 5 words.
Well, it was a character that was like, it was like he was in the first 5 chapters as kind of like this antagonist character, and then like when it switches, he was just kind of like, peace. I'm not hanging out with you guys anymore. I was like, that wasn't really let's do something with him. Like he just kind of
Consolidate
disappeared.
characters, whatever,
Yeah.
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 So next we have Brit. And
Yeah,
other than a book release.
I released a book, and I'm going to be, doing some email blasts, and I'm going to be on the guest we had a couple episodes ago, Raphael. I'm going to be on his podcast.
Oh, very cool.
And sometime in May, I think. So I've been kind of talking with him about when that is, and so hopefully he'll be on here as well.
Yeah.
So there's kind of promotion for that, as much as I can do it for now, and then
Story for Nerds.
Stories for Nerds, and then I'm also going to. I've also been getting back into writing Kill a God, which is just incredibly fun to me. It's just like literally, there are some books that I write just because I think they're fun. Like I get to the end of them and I go, I think this is really good, but I don't think anyone is ever going to buy this. Like I just like. I think it's really good, and I had a lot of fun, and so anyway, so that's more my urban fantasy stuff, which is really cool, but it's really fun, and as far as just review stuff, I was telling the guys before we kind of started and came on live here that I watched The Greatest Showman. Finally, I have been I'm just going to be real with everyone, be totally vulnerable. I love musicals. I am a musical lover. I like John Wick. I like the most manly movies you can imagine. I love that stuff. But I don't know. I think it's my mother. My mother, I just love good musicals. I love them.
I love musicals too. I listened to Les Mis for like a year straight, like every day.
Well, and I know you really like Hamilton.
Yeah, I was
really
going to
like
say, you wouldn't
Hamilton.
shut up about Hamilton.
Hey, I'll have you guys know, I picked up 2 tickets for June.
Nice.
I got me and my wife a set of tickets. It was
Which one of your children did you have to sell to get those tickets?
the older one.
Oh, okay, all right. I just since I love musicals, people have been telling me for a while, you really need to watch The Greatest Showman. Watch The Greatest Showman and take your kids and blah 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 and all this stuff. And I'm like, and I just never got around to it because I'm busy, like a lot of people. And people have been telling me, you really need to see this one. This is a good one. And so finally I rented it, got it home, watched it with the kids. My kids were halfway through it going, Daddy, can we get the soundtrack? We need the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Like they love the music. They love the story. It was clean and kid friendly.
Yeah. That's
and,
good.
And so it was really good. It was, pretty good message overall about just accepting people. There's some racial tension in there, and there's just some really cool stuff that they did. But the story overall and the writing overall, as far as the story was good. It wasn't great. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like bang up job. It almost felt a little rushed at times, but I will say the music just makes the whole thing. Like, it's kind of like I've listened to I haven't seen Hamilton, but you can just listen to the Hamilton soundtrack and be like, this is amazing. Like, that's the same thing with The Greatest Showman. Yeah. Like, the story's there, the messages are there, and the performances, there was a couple of performances, just dancing and other things that I was like, oh my God.
Having the visuals as the icing on the cake.
Oh my God, the visuals were good. Yeah. It's just really well done. And I think Hugh Jackman is a very talented guy. He really can sing. If you've seen Les Mis.
And he was in Les Mis, yeah.
He really can sing. And so, very, very good stuff.
Yeah. I remember taking my brother-in-law and his best friend, they were 15, to go see the Les Mis movie. And by the end of it, you could look over and they're tears streaming down their face. And they're like, that was a really good story. Musicals, I think it just adds another level of that emotion to it. Yeah. You've got the songs in there and they're belting out these powerful, but it's the story too that's in this song form, and I love it. I love it.
Of course, my son in the middle of it is asking me do people ever do this? Just break into song in the middle of a? I was like, I do.
Yeah, you haven't seen it?
He's like, you're right, you do. So that'll be that. So that Greatest Showman is kind of the main thing. And just to echo what Bill said, Jessica Jones, very good, very well done character. It was very well done. It wasn't. I didn't think it was as graphic or as sexual as the first series. I thought it was a little tamer in that regard.
Well, he's watching the first.
Oh,
season.
you're right.
I'm watching season 1. Right?
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, season 1. Episode 4. You can bypass it because they spend most of the time breaking bedroom furniture.
Yeah. Season 2 has a lot less of that and a lot more character development, and so I thought season 2 was very, very good.
I'm looking forward
I'll
to
probably
season
dive
2.
into that in one of these 2 next week.
All right, Evie.
Update. Biggest update is that I just kind of realized that I've been falling out of love with my story. So I just took a step back for a while and started looking at the old stuff, which is funny, kind of how Bill said, taking a step back for a minute. And so I looked over the old stuff, and what you were saying, it's so right. It's so different than the newer stuff I wrote, and it helped me kind of remember what I was trying to write in the first place. And then I've just been slowly finding one hole after the other and figuring out why am I falling out of love with the stories, because there's so many plot problems. So once again, I had to go back and go, okay, what role does the king really play? And this is way too perfect. I have the biggest problem with these perfect characters or this perfect situation or it just happened to be this way. That is not how real world works. Yeah, it's crazy and chaotic. And so I added more and more chaos. And then I started making it fun. So today I have this giant blackboard, entire wall that's a blackboard. And I just had fun. I put on my noise-canceling headphones and I started drawing a map to have it better in my head. And I didn't realize that Lee had walked into the room and he scared the daylights out of me and I threw my chalk at him. And he's like, yeah, that's going to stop a monster. So that was really fun. But I obviously fell back in love with the story enough to really be in my own little world that Lee was able to scare the daylights out of me.
Well, you did say, hey, you had noise-canceling headphones.
I did have noise-canceling headphones on. And speaking of singing out loud, like Leah several times walked in on me and I'm like just belting out random stuff. And one time he walked in on me dancing with a broom, so I definitely have a musical going on in my head at all times.
These are requirements to be a writer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you're not doing those things, you're not writing.
So where I work at Phoenix Roasters, they have a joke about me. And this will probably be beyond the years of many of the listeners, but they, Roxanne, you don't have to put... And that, of course, comes from 48 Hours. Because when I'm just doing stuff around the warehouse, I've got my earbuds in and I'm probably singing along to whatever it is. And so they're making, there's a scene in 48 Hours where Eddie Murphy is introduced and he's in the jail cell with headphones on, singing Roxanne by the Police. So and that's their joke when they see me sometimes. Roxanne. Like if I'm doing it, they'll like, in other words, like, dude, we can hear you. Like, just so you know.
Just so you know, you're not alone.
And they're not really annoyed by it. They just think it's funny. Like, they just give me a hard time.
Yep.
So I just wanted to hit on that. I know it's like going back and forth in your story and falling out of love with it and in love with it. And that's the writer's journey. Like, there's so many times I want to share my story with someone, and then I go to read it, and I'm like, I just, could you read this on your own? I don't want to go through this part again.
Like, I don't
And you're right. As she was saying it, I'm like, we do that. We fall out of love with a story.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a marriage, right? At some point, love isn't the emotion.
Right.
Right? At some point, me loving my wife isn't just because she's hot and I like the way she makes me feel, right?
Right.
Like at some point, love is choosing to love, right? That's real love.
Sticking
with it. The commitment is real love. Yeah. And so that's a really good point because I think we all do that with our stories. In order to finish it, you have to love it on a deeper level.
Arm to the Dentures didn't start out that way. It started out as a dumb story about about a writers group of all the things that were. It was insane, and one of the characters happened to go to retirement home and listen to the old people tell their stories, and he'd write down their stories for them so they could give them to their kids or whatever. Yeah. Okay, but he'd listen to their stories, and it was kind of a therapy for him. But that was where Arm to the Dentures came from. I was doing that, and I was like, I was bored with everything else that was going on in that story.
Right.
You're like, wait a minute, these ladies over here, they got something.
Yeah. But this was important. I was like, okay, we don't listen to those. We don't hear those stories, and we should. We should listen to those stories. Those are good stories.
Yeah.
It's those, especially the painful ones. That's what makes those people who they are.
Right. See, that's what I felt with my story, is the fact that going back was kind of fun because it almost confirmed, like, okay, we are making progress. Because the beginning of the first draft of the really, really, really rough draft of my story was really boring and very childlike. And so it's fun to see, like, okay, we have come a long way. And in a way, I feel like when it comes to being in a marriage with your book, that it takes work. Sometimes you have to stop and go, okay, why did I fall in love with you in the first place?
Exactly.
And it was really fun to go back and wake that up and go, yes, this is awesome.
Do you ever scream at it? Why?
Yes. Yes. But I will say that last time, I don't know if y'all saw the live feed or what, but last time I got shredded at the last writers group, let me just say. And it was funny because I kind of realized, like, the first draft is such a first draft, and I'm like, y'all, I'm just gonna write. I'll let you know when you hit the second draft.
Yeah. And that is the other thing I was gonna say is, you're kind of having this this tug and pull with not liking a character, thinking he's too perfect, but sometimes you just have to go forward with the story and just know in the back of your head when you do that next draft, that's when you're going to change that character up a bit to give him imperfections, or start giving him imperfections as you're writing, and then just go back and
fix the last bit.
I had that issue with my main antagonist. He was just kind of there and didn't really have a motive for him to be there, but I knew he needed to be there, so I just kept writing him in just as like little sidebars kind of, and now that I kind of know what his purpose is, I'm filling that in through this second draft.
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of notes. But, just figuring out, like, when you hit plot problems and you're like, if I keep this going, this is just going to plateau and just drop off, like, a cliff. Yeah. Like, this is bad. Like, this is...
That's a change of course.
Exactly. We are nowhere near over here.
Hitting the mark.
So that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of my main experiences with that was with The Living Stone. When my first pass, like, I got so distracted from, because like you're saying, like, people read parts of it and you're like, oh, I got to go back and fix that. And you get all distracted.
Right.
But I kept going back to that first vision I had was there's a master swordsman, but all he's got is a staff.
Yeah.
And he's looking for the sword. Like,
Yeah.
I just kept going back to that theme. And because here's why it's important. Because that theme made me fall in love with the story.
Yeah.
Like, whatever that idea was, that made me fall in love with the story. So that's really good. Like, you go back to and it's like, okay, there's all the I've introduced a billion characters,
Right.
and there's all these fights and there's all this crap going on, but really I have to, like, it helped me focus the story so that by the end, I'm not going to give away the end of the book, but by the end, when something happens, people are crying because I've kept the theme going
Consistent,
of
yeah.
he's a man who's a master swordsman, and all he's got is a staff, and
Yeah.
he's trying to get the sword that he wants. Like
And-
whatever that
and you
that
show
journey
it
is.
through other characters too. You talk about how their weapon they become intimate with it,
Yeah.
and that's who he really is as a swordsman. But that's not what he had. He's missing a
Right.
part of himself.
Yeah. So anyway,
This last week, exactly what you said. This last week, I found a blog, and it said how to write a book in a year. And I looked at it, and the very first thing he said is, when you start falling out of love, what was the sentence that got you to write the first part in the first place? So what was the sentence that you fell in love with?
yeah.
Go back to that. And so I wrote a one-sentence piece going, this is what the whole story
It's about.
is
This
about.
is what it's about.
That's
And that-
That's your log line.
That's your
you
log
need to go
line.
back to
Yeah.
that.
Exactly.
Well, but it's also, again, that's the theme that gets you connected. And if you're connected, other people are going to be connected. It's
Right.
going to be universal enough that people are going to be, ooh, who's that guy or who's that girl? And that fight, that struggle of identity. Like, I know I'm a master swordsman, but I'm waiting on this, right?
Right.
Like, that's a universal, and what your character's going through, her learning and her fighting and her struggle, it's all the same.
And
So.
speaking of connecting with your readers and us connecting with our listeners, we've got this story that we're going through.
All right.
And we will segue into that. That's the main part of this focus is
That's right.
we want our listeners to connect with the story on a level that they are engaging with it. And we met some of our listeners tonight too.
That's
and,
right.
And they seem like they're having a good time following along and being able to vote and decide on what happens next, even if their decision. But I noticed this time around, it was a pretty weighed decision.
Yeah.
It was like 6 and then 1 and 1, and I know I was one of those other opposite. But that's just because I wanted to be something a little more. Just give it,
Yeah, you're just trying to be a rebel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a rebel just for kicks.
But they voted. You guys voted right. You voted very well.
There you go. So you gave Bill what he wanted. Good job. But yeah, I think on that, unless anyone else has something to say, we'll transition
No, I think we're good.
on over to Bill for the story.
Boneyard, Episode 7. Troy reached for the man's gun. I moved fast, faster than I ever moved before. Something inside me told me it was bad wrong going for a gun like that. That little .38 pistol wasn't going to do us no good against all those rifles outside. There were rifles outside. I know that because there are always rifles and dogs. Can't forget the dogs. How many dogs can you shoot with a 6-gun? Those bars that my mind wouldn't let me see past a minute ago were behind me, and now I could see the rest of the picture. The walls were painted baby poop yellow, but the door was ship gray and made of steel. Steel door, bars on the windows so high that we'd need a ladder to even reach them. This weren't the local pokey that Troy had to pick Daddy up from so many times. Nope, this was a real jail. And that meant that there were more doors and more bars and more guards to get through before we could even think about being free. All that went through my head in 2 steps that it took me to reach Troy. I had him by the hand so fast and hard that I heard him blow all the air out of his lungs. I shook my head. "Don't touch that," I whispered. The man was a fool for leaving his duty belt hanging on a chair like that, but we didn't need to compound the foolishness. I took the cuffs off the loop and motioned for Walt to slap them on the guard on the count of 3. There was no way he could cuff both wrists without a fight, so I pointed at the chair arm. It was a start. There was a napkin left over from lunch on the table. Nice of them to leave that, I thought. I counted my fingers to 3. Walt slapped the cuffs across the guard's wrist and the chair arm. The man woke, his mouth open just wide enough for me to stuff that napkin in there. But no, that wasn't good enough. Troy had to be part of it. He goes and punches the guy right in the jaw. No need for cuffs or gags when the man is out cold. No way to get information out of him, I said to Troy, my eyes on the big gray door, wondering what was on the other side. You didn't tell me not to hit him. I thought it went without saying that we didn't want to hit no policeman and get in real trouble. Shoot, you think we ain't already in real trouble, said Troy. Oh, I know we're in real trouble, said Walt. He was hanging from the bars on the window by his hands, pulling himself up. Walt jumping up like that, pulling his fat butt up in the air above my head. No, that ain't for real. I gotta be dreaming, but I ain't dreaming. Walt's up there, and he still had the wind to talk. We ain't in Birmingham. I don't know where we is, but we ain't in Birmingham. Nothing but trees out there as far as I can see. He let go, landing with a heavy thump. We better tie him up better, he said, looking at the guard. He was right. One handcuff to the chair just made him slower with that hand. Troy snorted. He knew what I was thinking. Punching the man was a good move. I didn't have to like it, though. Turned out to be the only good thing we had to tie him up with was his own clothes. Troy tore the sleeve off the man's uniform shirt. His badge just said security, nothing else. We tied his free wrist to the 3 chair arm, then put the gun belt minus the gun around his knees. He wasn't going anywhere. Troy was eyeing the gun that I left lying on the table. I shook my head again. You gonna get a shot like that? He nodded. I was right, and he knew it. So, y'all good now? Said a voice behind me. I spun to see the door was open about 2 inches. I don't want anybody doing anything to get hurt or anything, said the voice through the crack. So am I okay to come in? Troy shuffled toward the table. Troy, stop it now if you got a brain in your head, I said, pulling him up short. Deb, I don't think this. You don't think. That's why we're here. You didn't think when you were driving, and you ain't thinking now. An unexpectedly pink and bald head stuck through the door. Below the shiny pink dome, a fringe of white hair framed a soft face, squinting through heavy tortoiseshell-framed glasses. Done with the family stuff? He scrunched up his nose and mouth like he was smelling something bad. Oh, that man didn't just make that face at us, said Walt. What face? Asked the pink creature in the white shirt and tie. Doing it again. That face, I said. Oh, I do that all the time, he said again. It's my tick. I don't even know what that means, said Troy, apparently forgetting our surroundings. He means like a tick, said Walt, squinting. Man, that's just kind of... Troy let it go. Does that man need medical attention? Asked the pink man, finally fully in the room. His focus shifted and he slipped past us to the cell. Already forgetting the man bound to the chair, he studied the bent bars with a childlike wonder. Which one of you did this? We looked at each other. No one wanted to answer. No matter. He swung back to us, clipboard in one hand, the other nervously touching his pocket where the cloth puckered from a recently removed name tag. I can't tell you my name, not until we get some forms signed. Maybe not then. Doc, said someone from the other side of the door. You're interrupting, he said, his voice trembling and his face expressionless. I know, but is the guard okay? He looks fine. Can they come get him, he asked us. I nodded dumbly. Come get him, said the man that I was already calling Doc in my head. 2 men in identical security uniforms entered the room timidly. I noticed right away that neither had a gun belt. They lifted the chair with our guard in it. As if it was an afterthought, one of the men retrieved the gun by the barrel. They scooted out, but not before I had a good long look at the next room. I held my breath. Doc studied us, his face scrunched up again. Okay, was all I could say. That was the strangest white man I ever seen, said Troy. Walt shushed him. They're listening to us. You get that? Troy shrugged. We were just talking about he scrunched up his nose, tick right in front of him. I just stood there looking at the door, trying to understand what I saw. Deb, said Walt. Hey, Deb, you righteous, said Troy. I shook my head again and again. What was going on in my head? That can't be. You all didn't see out there, did you? No answer. Troy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't let you take the gun. They got tables out there, stainless steel operating tables with drains in them. That's the kind they use when they cut people up. Dead people. They got 3 of them. Ain't nobody here dead, said Troy. But Walt got it. I could see it the way his face froze with his mouth wide open. Then Troy got it. No, Deb, you out of your mind, girl. Does anyone know where we are? Does anyone care, I said. My parents care, said Walt.
Snap them in.
And
job,
scene.
Yeah.
Good job.
All right, guys, and we've got options here. Okay, we've got 2 options. Okay,
Yeah.
they are. Doc seems like a nice guy, but wants to autopsy them.
Ooh, yeah.
Creepy dude.
That's like an X-Files episode.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he's got his little twitch, his little rabbit nose or whatever. Okay, the second option, the weird Doc helps them escape.
Oh, yeah.
Guy's got a conscience. We didn't expect that.
Or maybe
he's
just,
weird, but
maybe
he's got a
just
conscience.
really invested in the kids. And
Yeah,
wants
maybe
them to
he's
go.
got somewhere else to take them. You know, maybe he's got his ulterior motive. Whatever.
Yeah.
He helps them escape. He gets them out of this government facility, whatever this is. Okay. And let's talk about a third option because we need a third option, guys.
Yeah.
And you know,
And we want to give you guys good options to pick from, so you don't feel like
I got ideas.
Well, I think we've got 2 solid options. My other thought is, what if we say someone like volunteers, like Troy volunteers, to be the one taken into the other room or something. So now you have 2 people.
What if they start to negotiate?
Or something like that.
The
Or
idea that Troy says, if you work on me, let them go.
Yeah, and then from Deb's point of view, she doesn't know what's happening to him in the other room.
An alien shows up.
Mary Jane crashes through the wall with her car. Yeah.
And the alien who they belong to shows up.
Come back from.
Did we keep any of the food around here, even if it's sugary? Because I'm about to
Dude, I
crash
should
here.
have had Chinese fish. Or what's the third
So,
option for me?
I don't know. I feel like.
I think we're just gonna have to come out of left field with the third option.
Yeah.
I think that's the only. I think we're overthinking the third option.
Oh.
I think we've got 2 really good
The
options.
Doc
Facebook
turns
is
out
the-
to be the alien that's coming back for the rock.
Yes! Yes!
Doc is an alien.
Doc is an alien.
Yes. Doc is an alien looking for.
Perfect!
Doc is an alien.
Nice.
Let's
See, that's way better to me. Like, that's like. Because I'm just saying, like, we're gonna have to explain where these stones come from.
Yeah. It
And
opens up
why?
that option.
Like,
All right,
like
guys.
how did they know where they were? And like, we can use.
Turn this
Cool.
thing back on
Yes.
my direction and let me
It
announce
is.
it.
It is.
Oh, yeah, it's
All
for
right.
all of us, yeah.
We got a third option.
You've got 8
We-
hours to.
We solved this. It only took us 7 hours around the table to come up with a third option. No, not
And
really.
no food.
It took there.
Poor Bill. So hungry.
Okay, and so we got a third option. Doc is an alien.
That's right.
Boom.
Boom.
Boom. All right.
Explains a lot.
You guys vote well.
So let's do the options again.
Options again. Doc seems like a nice guy,
Right.
but wants to autopsy them.
Boom. Got it.
The weird Doc helps them escape. Doc is an alien.
He is.
That's
He is
option
revealed somehow.
But he's
You get to choose.
Thank you.
He somehow is revealed as an alien.
Y'all,
This is fun.
You need to be nice. Oh man, I just start praying about those votes. I'm about to be in trouble.
So that's the episode 7 there for you guys, and there are your options to segue into episode 8. Thank you again, our faithful listeners, for checking in with us and keeping up with the story, getting out there and voting and
Yeah.
sharing on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and thank you guys who have written comments and said, giving us feedback, what they like, what they're looking forward to. And we're doing this for you guys. We're doing this as a way for our writing, giving us ourselves a little writing exercise, but also ultimately it's for you guys to be entertained and have fun and come along this process with us.
Yeah. So we need you to vote.
Yes.
We didn't have as many votes last time. We had like twice as many listeners as usual,
Yeah.
but not as many votes. So really, seriously, go and vote. And even if you got to say, I don't like the choices, maybe give us an extra one or something. I don't know, but just get involved in the voting. So we had a great uptick in listens, in whatever downloads.
Yeah.
Last episode. So I know more people are checking it out, and I think even more people are going to be checking it out after tonight and some other things. So,
Yeah.
so just vote, and we'll make sure we have something up on Facebook and the website,
Right.
and let's
Yeah.
get to it.
And until then, raise the glass to inspiration.
A whole bunch of water bottles.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night.
Like,
This weren't the local pokey that Troy had to pick Daddy up from so many times. Nope, this was a real door. Real door? That's what happens when you have one beer
Fake doors.
and no food. I'm going to start that paragraph over.
Okay.
As if an afterthought.
What? Do you want him to be a butt, or do you want him to be like a
Yeah,
slimy guy?
I think it
He doesn't even see them as human right now. Doc is a nice guy, but wants to autopsy them. Doc is evil and wants to autopsy them.
Because the third one can be totally different.
I mean, I just don't like that it's autopsy in both.
Like his attitude.
Yeah,
towards
This guy's just all. I mean, that's who this guy is. He's a twisted little guy. That's all.
But that would be the evil version.
Yeah. But
he's evil either way.
He's nice to them, but I mean, yeah, he's evil either way. So look,
Two men in identical security uniforms entered.
glug glug glug.
For the outtakes, that was water.